Hi, my name's Janelle, and in this series I'm going to be showing you how to go from knowing absolutely zero about sewing to being able to make your own wardrobe. I don't use big words or overcomplicate things. I just plan on showing you what I've learnt over a decade of making my own clothes and share all the tips and tricks I've learnt along the way to make sewing a whole lot easier. Shopping for fabric can be super intimidating and overwhelming if you're a complete beginner, so hopefully the tips I'll be sharing in this video will give you a lot more confidence next time you're at the fabric shop. Tip number 1 is to create a fabric amount cheat sheet. One of my most asked questions is how much fabric should I buy if I don't have a pattern in mind yet? This is something that gets a lot easier to figure out the more experience you have with making your own clothes. But basically, I know for my measurements and body type that 3 meters or 3 yards is enough to make a short sleeve or midi length dress, 4 meters or 4 yards is enough to make a long sleeve or maxi dress, and 1.5 meters or 1.5 yards is enough to make a blouse or a skirt. To figure out what amount is enough for you and your measurements, take a look at some of the patterns you have in your stash, or if you don't have any patterns, have a look at some online and check out how much fabric each one says you'll need for your particular size. I recommend checking at least 5 different patterns for each garment type, and from those patterns figure out an average amount of fabric you'll need. Then write this average amount of fabric down in your notes app of your phone so that it's handy next time you're out and about fabric shopping. Tip number 2 is to keep an eye on the fabric width. If only there was a standard width for dress fabrics, but unfortunately there's not. In my experience, the most common is around 115 centimeters or 45 inches wide. Some fabrics are as little as 90 centimeters or 35.5 inches wide, but you can sometimes get fabric up to 150 centimeters or 60 inches wide. If the fabric is 150 centimeters, you won't need to purchase as many meters as you have more fabric in the width to work with. So make sure you keep an eye on it, and you may need to add or subtract the amount on your cheat sheet as necessary. Tip number 3 is to know the different fabric types. Ultimately, I love to experiment with fabric and believe you can use whatever fabric for any project. If you want to make a dress from upholstery fabric, then go for it. In saying that though, some fabrics are naturally better suited to certain projects than others. For example, you can make a chiffon coat if you want to, but it's not going to keep you very warm. And I could go into all the details and dump a whole heap of information on the different types of fabric in this video, but instead I've created a free downloadable fabric guide that goes through the most common types of fabrics that you'll find at a fabric store and what projects are best suited to them. Download the guide, save it onto your phone, and refer back to it when you're out fabric shopping, and that way you can check the labels on the fabric and then check back to the guide to be able to know what the fabric is and how to use it. Hopefully this will be a super helpful resource for you. Tip number 4 is to look through every section thoroughly. Fabric stores are overwhelming. It's just an unfortunate fact of life. Make sure to look through every table or rack at least twice, as it's so easy to miss some of the really good fabrics the first time through. Also, the dream fabric you're looking for might be getting cut by another customer at the time, so it's always good practice to circle back through the sections a second time just in case you missed something the first time around. Tip 5 is to find a mirror to help visualize how the fabric will look as a garment. Every good fabric store should have a mirror somewhere, and if they don't, then ask one of the salespeople to take a photo of you holding the fabric up to yourself on your phone. This really helps to see how the fabric looks against your skin tone, and also helps to visualize how the fabric might look once it's a finished garment. Sometimes a fabric looks way different once it's been rolled out a few meters compared to what it looks like on the bolt, and there's nothing worse than getting your fabric home, holding it up to yourself and realizing it doesn't suit you as you hoped, or just looks completely different to how you imagined it would. Tip number 6 is don't forget to check the thrift stores. Some of my all-time favorite fabric finds have been recycled from bed sheets or curtains from the thrift store. It's also the most sustainable way to shop for fabrics, as you're recycling bed sheets that would normally end up in landfill. And if that's not enough reasons, it's also a much more affordable way to shop for fabric too. And lastly, tip number 7 is to wash your fabrics before cutting into them. This goes for both new and secondhand fabrics. New fabrics tend to shrink a little bit on the first wash, and you don't want your freshly made project shrinking when you eventually have to give it a wash for the first time. Secondhand fabrics are often a little bit dirty or might have a musty smell, and giving them a good wash and air dry outside will bring them up as good as new. I hope you found this video helpful and that you now have a bit more confidence when you next go fabric shopping. Also, don't forget to go and download the fabric guide in the description below. I'm really proud of this guide and I know it's going to be a super helpful resource for you. In the next Sewing for Beginners episode, I'm talking all about sewing machines, how to use them, the different types of stitches, and what to look out for when you're buying your first one. So make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on that. Have a lovely day and thanks for watching.